As we head into the July 4th weekend, there are two very different definitions of revolution floating around. One of them involves what our founders did 250 years ago and what Donald Trump is doing right now. The other revolution is a cheap and poisonous imitation. Right now, it's a joint project of Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Democratic Socialists of America, the organization which just won 3 congressional seats in New York City and another one in Colorado yesterday. They want to destroy this country as we know it. Here's President Trump talking about the danger.
Because it's not socialism, it's really communism. They use the word social democrat because it sounds so nice, but it's really communism you're talking about. I think it's the biggest threat to our nation there is, maybe since our founding. That includes World War I, World War II, September 11th. It includes the Pearl Harbor attack. I think this is the biggest threat to our nation.
Is he exaggerating? Greater than Pearl Harbor? World War I? World War II? In this video, I'll show you why the president is not exaggerating. After all, other presidents have been killed over implementing the American system. I'm going to start by showing you what the president is doing, which would make our founders proud. Then we'll talk about the fakery of Mark Carney. He's now the spokesman for the City of London's war against Trump. He has radical allies to deploy, namely the Democratic Socialists of America. So all revolutions are new beginnings. Here's Scott Bessent yesterday talking about our current economy.
I think we are at the edge of an innovation wave that we are seeing here. We are reshoring manufacturing under President Trump's policies. The United States is the best place in the world to build your factory, have tax certainty, regulatory certainty, which is something this administration has really done, and energy certainty. And, back to the gasoline prices, during the Iran conflict, the U.S. economy powered through it. The economy has been very strong. We've been creating about 170,000 jobs a month during the conflict. And I wouldn't be surprised, I haven't seen the number, if this month's job number is very strong.
He's talking about an innovation wave, new technologies, new inventions, in an economy already resilient enough to defy all the predictions of disaster from the Iran war. All revolutions involve entirely new beginnings, built on the best of the past. Tariffs, deregulation, capital expenditure tax cuts, Federal Reserve reform, all of it aimed at bringing our industrial base home in the first months of this administration. That is the foundation. But it's supporting a map of new scientific and technological discoveries that will sustain this revolution for generations to come. And last week, the administration put it all together in a new initiative, President Trump's America First Resilience Strategy. It was released on June 23rd. It hasn't been covered at all, but it's a revolution in how we think about national security and the future. Up until now, our approach has been reactive. A disaster happens, we respond, we recover. That's crisis management. We've also lived through invented catastrophes that never happened: the population bomb, limits to growth, holes in the ozone, imminent climate catastrophe. Those were all designed by globalists to insert new methods of social control. The premise of Trump's new strategy, I'll quote, "No adversary or hazard should be able to hold America or our core interests at risk." The aim is to back that with technology and industrial programs in every state, making any crisis survivable before it happens. If you read the president's executive orders and his national security strategy, you'll see this plan built out brick by brick. All of it is on the White House website. Now think about that alongside the wave of discoveries Alexander Hamilton mandated right after our revolution. The Revolutionary War left us flat broke. We defeated the most powerful empire on earth through our ingenuity, but our nation was bankrupt. In shaping our recovery, Hamilton turned to the great lesson of that war. It's the human mind and the method of applying it that determines any economy and a nation's future. Here's what he wrote in his report on manufacturers. To cherish and stimulate the activity of the human mind by multiplying the objects of enterprise is not among the least considerable of the expedients by which the wealth of a nation may be promoted. Every new scene which is open to the busy nature of man to rouse and exert itself is the addition of a new energy to the general stock of effort. Hamilton's national bank and credit policies made sure new discoveries got the support they needed to reach immediate use. That's how we built our way out of bankruptcy. Now listen to Vice President Brandt's on President Trump's approach just yesterday.
I do think fundamentally that Hamiltonian tradition is going to be what we see on the American right and will dominate American conservative economic thinking for the future. Yeah, which is not laissez-faire. It's actually much more about, building the kind of tools, building the kind of infrastructure that allow human beings to flourish. Yeah. That allow national and native industries to flourish at the expense of a hyper-globalized economy. And I think those are the basic principles that are going to carry us into the future. But to me, it's fundamentally about the dignity of the human person. The economy is a tool to service the dignity of the human person. If a set of economic policies make it easier for a person to raise a family, to earn a living wage, to give back to their community, to maybe go to church on Sunday, or to actually spend some leisure time building the kind of life that matters, like that is the sort of thing that we want to be supportive of.
If you want to learn more about this history and why it's been banished from our schools, you need to subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com. You'll find a whole lot more of the background there. Now let's look at Mark Carney's attempted counter-revolution. Carney has been on a speaking tour, proposing what he says is a third way for middle countries against Donald Trump. He admits the old globalist financial order he thrived in is dead, and something new has to be built. By middle countries, he means Europe, the UK, and whoever else they can sucker in. Listen to what Carney said in Ireland on June 13th. Right now, many countries are concluding that they must develop greater strategic autonomy, and that impulse is understandable. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. A country that cannot feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. He went on, because governments and business long prioritize efficiency over resilience, we have all developed supply chains and trading relationships that create dependencies that can turn economic integration from an advantage into subordination. Doesn't that sound like Scott Bessent and Donald Trump? But then he adds these kickers. We're passionate about building strong economies as the means to just societies where we take care of the vulnerable, just societies where you can love who you want to love, where everyone can be their entire selves and all have a chance to thrive. Climate change is no longer a warning, it is here. Last month, Ireland experienced its hottest May on record. Last year in Canada, forests larger than Ireland burned in the drought and the heat. So you build a strong economy through the climate agenda in service of multicultural bliss. Canada is focused on building a dense web of connections, ad hoc coalitions that work, issue by issue, with partners that share enough common ground to act together. He's talking here about the same coalition of the willing working to block President Trump's peace efforts in Ukraine. It's why we were the first non-European country to join the EU's Security Action for Europe Defense Procurement Program. That's the defense spending engine the coalition of the willing is using to salvage their dying economies and keep the Ukraine war going. It's why we're championing efforts to build a bridge between the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the European Union, something that would create a trading bloc of 1.5 billion people. Even Hillary Clinton knew the Trans-Pacific Partnership was a bad deal for working-class wages here. This all makes sense once you know Carney's background. He headed both the Central Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. In 2019, at Jackson Hole, he called for digital currencies and all finance to be handled by banking experts rather than political relics like the U.S. Congress. He then headed the Net Zero Climate Alliance, aiming to cut off credit worldwide to fossil fuel producers. That was before he ran for Canada's premiership at the urging and with the policies of his close friend, the Fabian socialist, Tony Blair. Carney has obviously been chosen to lead the UK and Europe against Trump's America First agenda, operating with all the deviousness of a British Fabian socialist. And a central banker attempting a revolution or a coup needs foot soldiers on the ground. That's where the DSA comes in. Listen carefully as I outline the DSA's real program and its roots in the British Labour Party and British strategic operations against the empire's chosen enemies throughout history. The DSA's demands for free housing, healthcare, childcare, education, and transportation sound like Europe's social democracies. That's because the DSA came from the Second Socialist International, the same organization that birthed the British Labour Party. They call these demands the minimum program. These demands, and I'm quoting, do not contend an immediate break with capitalism, but they heighten the contradictions of capitalism and represent a step toward its dissolution. In DSA's own theoretical journal, Cosmonaut magazine, they say the minimum program is, quote, a roadmap for the proletariat to seize state power entirely in a revolutionary break. The 2025-2026 DSA platform, Workers Deserve More, calls explicitly for public ownership over major transportation and energy infrastructure and natural resources under its Green New Deal plan. Its preamble states the maximum goal: a socialist society where the largest corporations are put under public ownership and democratic control, where workers around the world join together in common struggle to construct socialism worldwide. The platform also calls for overturning the Constitution. They want to abolish the Senate and make the Supreme Court and the president subservient to Congress. The stage for this stance has been set by strict adherence to Antonio Gramsci's communist command. To win the revolution, you must first get the targeted country to hate their own culture. It destroys any will to fight. That cultural war has been ongoing for some time now and has been supported by every major institution. Just think of the New York Times 1619 Project portraying our founders as a bunch of land-stealing racists. Starting with Lord Palmerston, British intelligence has always used terrorist formations to destabilize its geopolitical enemies. The author Richard Poe documents how, after World War I, the British engineered the Russian Revolution using Karl Marx's hatred of Russia. The goal was to permanently destabilize both Russia and Germany. The Trump administration openly embraces Hamilton's American system to revive the United States. But the British have killed our presidents over time, from Lincoln to McKinley to Kennedy to their direct threats against President Trump. The American system, attacked by both finance capitalism and Karl Marx, is the only legitimate third way. And right now, we're in a war between the American system and the modern British financial system. Like all wars, some battles are won, some have been lost. But it will ultimately be decided by people who step outside the mental change our enemy puts on us through a corrupt media, a still corrupt Washington, and the psyops against the coalition that won in November, all launched by a desperate, dying globalist empire. Now, they've tried to censor the American system out of our history book for decades, but we've discovered there's something like an American reflex still in our souls that answers great challenges and things people call impossible. That's what has to be mobilized now for a massive win in the midterms. That's our mission at Promethean Action. If you haven't already, subscribe to our newsletter for yourself and others and contribute what you can. This has been your Wednesday update going into our 250th anniversary. Thanks so much for listening.
Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.